Welcome to another episode of the Washington Retirement Planning Podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Meikle. Here we talk about all things that have to do with Washington State retirement planning, especially when it comes to your benefits. So my goal for this podcast is to help you guys get a better understanding of all your amazing benefits and the best ways to utilize them to empower you guys to retire earlier. Today's episode, we're going over the 4 things that financial advisors don't want you to know. Now, originally, I posted this on my YouTube channel a few years back, and it was 5 things. However, the first thing was about fees, and I really said some things back then that I'd come to find out weren't exactly true, and my beliefs kind of shifted over the years. So I did go ahead and take that part out of today's podcast. Now, I'll address fees in the future, but for this particular episode, I found it wouldn't be exactly helpful. It didn't make advisory look that good. So I took it out. My views changed over time. But I still have those other 4 I kept in there, and these are things that you really should be knowing or you should be talking about with your advisor because they are very, very important. And I see most people that come to our office that have advisors completely overlook these 4 things. So we'll dive into that here today. After we cover all of that, we're going to go over the question of the day, which is one that comes up all the time. That is, how much is enough? Or how much money do I need to save before I can retire? Now that number, of course, is going to be, it's a depends answer, but I'll dive more into specifics as we answer that question in today's podcast. And before we dive in, the course is now live. So if you're a Washington State employee and you want to get your hands on a new free community that has tons of exclusive financial content in there, the link is in the description below where you can click to join. It's currently free to join. I've got 5 free videos on there. None of that you can find on YouTube, and they go much more in depth and detail on your benefits and all your particular features of your plan so you can get a better insight of how to utilize them. So it's free to join. Tell your friends. The link is in the description below. Without further ado, let's dive right in.
The thing your financial advisor will never tell you is that using an annuity to replace your bonds can offer you a better performance overall. It may sound crazy. You probably heard annuities are expensive, and most advisors would never use them or even brought them up or use them in this manner. But the fact remains that if you were to replace the bonds you're currently holding your portfolio with an annuity, you probably have a better performing account. Why is that? Annuities have no market risk. Bonds do. In 2020, we had this giant crash. Bonds went negative. Annuities didn't. They still had that guaranteed rate of return. That is something a lot of advisors don't tell you about because their fee relies on how much money you have in the market. And if you were to take money and put it into an annuity, they can't charge you the annual fee on it. So it's not going to be worked towards their best interest, even though it may be doing better for you. The other thing this is going to do, it's going to dramatically reduce the risk you're taking. Remember that these annuities are guaranteed. They have no risk in them where the bonds do. So if you took 40% that you had in bonds and moved it into an annuity, you'd be reducing your risk by 40%. Even though bonds are considered low risk, they still lose money. Many of them still lose 5 or 6% when the market goes sour. Well, these annuities are guaranteed. They don't go negative. So it's a way to dramatically reduce the risk that you have in your portfolio overall. The thing your financial advisor isn't going to be telling you is how important long-term care cost is. In fact, there's a 70% chance, 70, that you're going to be using some kind of long-term care in the future. In other words, in the next 20 to 30 years, there's a 70% chance your monthly expenses are going to increase $8,000 to $10,000 per month. That's huge and wipe pretty much anyone's retirement out. Now, a lot of planners won't tell you about it or work with you to find a plan. They'll tell you have enough money and it should be enough to last. But in fact, it's probably not going to be the case. I mean, think about it. If all of a sudden you have to take $10,000 out per month and it's for a long-term care need that's going to last 2 to 3 years on average, there's probably going to be much left of your account at all. The way I look at this is if someone were to call me to tell me that their spouse has been placed in some kind of long-term care facility, do I want to be the guy that says, I'm sorry to hear that. Which account do you want to start draining down first? Oh yeah, and on top of that, we have to account for taxes. So we have to take out more and your account's probably going to be drained the next 2 to 3 years and you have nothing left for the rest of your life. Or do I want to be the guy that says, sorry to hear that. Thank God we had that long-term care plan in place. Let's get the plan started right now so you can at least offset some of the expensive and not have it completely covered. That's just the way I think about it and the way it should be done. The fourth thing your financial advisor is probably never ever going to tell you is that you're going to pay way, way more in taxes over the long term than if you were to bite the bullet and pay them now. Now, why aren't they telling you this? Because taxes are complicated. No one wants to do Roth conversions, do all the paperwork and learn about tax codes and look at your income, make sure we don't go over a certain threshold or increase your Medicare payment when you take out too much money. It's a lot of headaches. So most advisors just stay clear of it. They let your pre-tax account sit there. They do their reviews, and it just snowballs. And secretly, you're going to owe more and more taxes over the long run. I mean, with taxes being as low as they are today, where the highest tax bracket is only 37%, that's a discount. If you look back over time, back in the 80s, the top bracket was 70%. Now, I know many of you guys aren't in the top brackets. Why does that matter? The fact is, the middle brackets will follow the top bracket. So back in the 80s, when the top bracket was at 70, the middle bracket was at 37%. So if taxes go up for the rich, typically the middle brackets will fall to a degree. And if you don't think taxes are going up in the future, you just have to kind of look around and see how much debt this nation's taking on, especially with the pandemic and all the stimulus packages coming out. The fact is, when you have too much debt, the interest payments start adding up, and over 10% of the U.S. budget actually goes just to pay our interest today. And the only way the government can make up for that is to increase taxes. And any accounts you have that are pre-tax are really just sitting ducks for those taxes to happen. And whether they take them in your life or they take them when your kids inherit it, they're going to get their income one way or another. So it's important to do tax planning today to minimize the amount of taxes you and your family is going to pay over the long run, so you keep more of your hard-earned money. And that's something most advisors will never ever tell you or talk to you about, simply because they don't want to or they don't know any better. The fifth thing your financial advisor will never tell you is that they don't specialize in retirement income planning. Now, most people have the assumption that all financial advisors help people with their retirement and they all know what they're doing. The fact is, that's not true. Most of them are taught how to get people to sign up and enroll and systematically invest money with them and build up for retirement. But the fact is, when it comes to taking money off your account and actually spending and enjoying your money, most advisors have no clue what they're doing. They'll tell you to use some old financial rule, like the rule of 4%, that really doesn't work quite as well anymore, or they'll put you in some kind of crappy financial product that their sales manager told them to use, or it's one that their company makes and sells itself. Most advisors really don't know what they're doing when it comes to retirement income planning. It's kind of like when you look at Mount Everest, the majority of people don't die on the way to the summit, they die on the declines. If you don't have a Sherpa to guide you down, you're going to make some kind of fatal mistake, and it's the same thing with your retirement. Anyone can help you build money for your retirement, but when it comes time to start drawing it down and making sure you're not going to run out of money, you want to work with somebody that knows what they're doing and specializes in retirement income planning. So just because your advisor got you to retirement doesn't mean they can get you through your retirement. And one other thing you want to consider is how old your advisor is. Are they actually going to be there with you throughout your whole retirement? I mean, if your advisor is older than you or the same age as you, there's a good chance they're going to be retired and long gone when you need them during your retirement years.
All right, so now for the question of the day, which is how much is enough? So when you're approaching retirement, this is an important figure because a lot of people will look at numbers and they think they need to keep on working more, that they don't have enough. And they'll keep on working and saving for some arbitrary number or goal, but they never actually sat down, did the math, figure out what is their magic number to retire on. So your number is going to really depend on your lifestyle or how much you spend. Someone that needs to spend $10,000 per month is going to obviously need to have more money than someone that spends $6,000 per month. So your budget or your lifestyle dictates to a degree how much you need to have or what is enough. So the best advice I can give you is important to track what you guys spend. So sit down, no one likes looking at budgets, but figure out and get a rough idea of how much do you guys typically spend on a month-to-month basis. And yes, some months are going to be higher than others with things that go on, but typically, if you just look at the last 12-month bank statements and took an average of what you guys are spending, that'll give you a pretty good idea of what your budget or your spending needs are. Next thing to look at is what is our guaranteed income sources. So you have your pension from Washington State, you've got Social Security, depending on your employer. Most of you guys have Social Security. Those are your guaranteed income sources. Now, ideally, when I do plans, I really like to have the guaranteed income sources cover all of our fixed expenses. So when you look at your budgets, we have things that we need or that are fixed that, we're going to come every single month. Things like property taxes, insurance bills, health insurance, rent if you're paying rent, food, utilities. So the things that aren't going to go away. You are always going to need them in some form or another that you really can't cut out, right? We can't just, move to the middle of the street and not pay rent. Or I guess you could, but probably wouldn't want to do that. I mean, you can't just not eat. So there are things that you're going to have to keep on paying in retirement. So I call those, sort of our fixed expenses or our needs. So it's important to have our guaranteed income cover our needs. Now, if pension, Social Security are not enough to cover our needs, that's when you start looking at things like the TAP annuity, for example. About 8 out of every 10 clients that come through my office now, we're looking at that TAP annuity. I would look at it regardless, but I'm often recommending it more and more now, especially when I see this type of shortfall. Now, I'm not saying to put all your money in there, but enough to cover the guaranteed income portion or the guaranteed expense portion. So if you look at your budget and you're spending $4,000 a month for fixed expenses and you have $2,000 for other stuff, travel, you go shopping, things like frivolous spending that isn't like make or break. Like you didn't necessarily need that to survive, but Maybe like when you're shopping and enjoying stuff, right? So we call that our variable expenses. They kind of can go up and down depending if we're in a shopping mood or not, but they're not going to, make or break our livelihood or our health or anything like that. So those are our variable expenses. That variable expenses can be covered from your portfolio. It's not as crucial. Of course, if you want to guarantee it all, you certainly can. But if your fixed expense going out every single month is $4,000, and between your pension and Social Security, you're only getting about $3,000. You have about $1,000 a month shortfall for the fixed expenses. So I would look at potentially type annuity just to pay out that $1,000 at a minimum, just to know that if the market went completely broke, your accounts disappeared overnight for whatever reason, and you had no money left to your name, at least you'd have this guaranteed income stream coming in to cover your monthly expenses and your bills. You don't have to worry so much about it. So if the market tanks hard on you and you feel like I'm going to run out of money, you can't take money out per month, it's nice having a guaranteed income source where the amount of money you get per month is not dictated on how the stock market is currently doing or who's in office or however you want to spin it. So having this guaranteed income streams to help offset your income will help a lot. To actually see how much is enough, a lot of part of it is going to depend on what you're comfortable spending out of your portfolio and how your timeline works. So for example, when I'm doing a lot of early retirement planning, it's important that when I look at it is knowing that the current expenses or current income levels will change. Therefore, it is okay to take a little bit more of my portfolio now because I know I'm going to be backing off of it in a few years from now. So for example, I just helped someone retire this past school year at age 60. We don't plan taking Social Security to age 67. Therefore, we have a 7-year gap before that Social Security income hits. His current needs are more than the 5% I typically recommend, but I'm okay with it because it's only for a short period of time. I already carved out 5 years of income anyways, so I carved out 2 more years from his portfolio to make it work. We know that worst case scenario, he's going to have income from the portfolio for at least 7 years, and it may be a little bit higher withdrawal rate than we initially want for like the long term, but we know in 7 years from now, or sooner if we choose, Social Security is going to turn on, and it's going to drastically reduce the amount of income we need from that portfolio. So we're going to go from something like a 6-7% withdrawal rate down to like a 2 or 3. So we're going to back way off down the road, assuming his expenses keep track the way they are. So that's where having an advisor, having that type of knowledge can come in handy because it's not so cut and dry. It's not, I only have 4%, I only have 5%, I can't retire yet, right? So for example, if you had $1 million and you're saying, hey, I'm going to draw 5% per year, that's only $50,000, per year. That's less than $5,000 a month. If you needed $5,000 a month and you did that, you'd be like, oh no, I'm short. I need to save X amount of dollars more. But you may not necessarily need to work or save more. It depends on your income stream and situation. If you can get your budget down, that could help. Or maybe you take a little bit more in the earlier years, knowing that Social Security or you have other income streams coming in at a later point. So as far as how much is enough, it really depends on what your situation is and how much you want to take from it. So I use 5% for my clients. It's more than the 4% rule you might see. It's more than what the boggleheads will tell you at 2 or 3%, or the fire community when they're retiring in their 40s and 50s. So everyone has their own way of doing it. I use 5%, but the portfolio does have to be designed correctly. You can't just retire, leave things as is, take 5%, hope it all works out. It is an active strategy and it needs to be managed correctly. And if you don't have the time, expertise, or the emotional control to manage that, that's when things are going to get a little bit sticky and more emotional in retirement. And that's where having a professional come in and help you deal with that can really be worth it in the long run because it just takes a lot of hassle out of your life. I read a study this past week that Vanguard did. They surveyed about 12,000 people, I believe, DIYers in retirement. And they stated that one thing that 78% of them underestimated was the amount of time it took to manage their own investments. And they self-reported that they spent on average 2 hours per week to manage their portfolio. Now, 2 hours a week may not seem like a lot, but when you add it up, it's at least 100 hours per year. That's 2 full weeks of working, doing nothing but looking at investments and moving things around. Now, that's the average. So you might not care. You may not look at it at all and spend no time on it. Or you might go the other way and spend 4 or 5 hours a week on it. Regardless, it's important to know your methodology with money, if that's going to be you, the person that likes to track things a lot, or you don't really have the desire, the need, or the time for it, so you tend not to look at it as often. Either way, if you're not looking often, you might miss opportunities. And if you're looking at too much, you might be wasting too much time. So that's where offloading that responsibility to an advisor could really be worth it. But to give you guys some context here, or some key numbers, if you're going to use just the 5%, for example, basically it means for every $100,000 you have saved, you can pull about $5,000 out per year. And remember that if this is coming from a Plan 3 account, deferred comp, or like a pre-tax source, that money is going to be pre-tax. So even though I say it's $5,000 per year, how much you get in pocket is going to depending on what tax brackets you are in. So you might only end up with $4,000 in pocket. So taxes are something you need to account for when doing this type of math. But you get about $5,000 for every $100,000 you have saved. So what does that mean? So if I've got $1 million, that's $50,000. If I have $100,000, that's $25,000 per year. So homework, if you're trying to figure out what your number is go ahead and do quick projections, looking at what your Social Security is going to look like, what your pension is going to look like. That'll give you your guaranteed income threshold, and just do a projection on how much you expect to have or currently have saved for retirement. Take like 5% of that, and that'll give you a rough idea of how much income you potentially have. So to make it easy for you guys, if you looked at it and you said, hey, my pension is going to be $2,000 per month, Social Security is going to be $2,500 per month. Great, I have $4,500 per month on a guaranteed basis, and I've got $600,000 saved up between Plan 3, 403B, deferred comp, Roth IRAs, whatever it is. Just put it all in one pot. It's a lot easier than trying to add it all up to it's one number. And I know they're in different places and they have different rules, and it might be Roth, pretax, after that, whatever. Just if you want quick, simple, dirty math, add it all together. So let's just say I have $600,000 roughly between me and my spouse's accounts. That's what we got saved. Take 5% of it, it's going to be $30,000 in this case. All right, so that's $30,000 per year. Between Social Security and pension, I said it was $4,500 per month. Annualize it out. So I'm going to get $54,000 per year between Social Security and pension. I'll get $30,000 per year from this portfolio. So my income expected is about $84,000 per year pre-tax for most people. That's what that works out to be. Divide that monthly, it's about $7,000 per month. So if you're like, hey, well, I actually only need $5,000 per month, maybe I have enough if this is your situation. And maybe remember that this is pre-tax. So take your taxes off the top. 20% is pretty safe. Most people really only need 15. But if your income is $7,000 per month and then you withheld for expected 20% taxes, you would bank about $5,600 per month to be your take home. So if you need to spend $5,000, you have a little bit of buffer room here. If it's your situation, you need $6,000 or $7,000. After taxes, we're not there yet. So now, we might have to save more or potentially take a little bit higher amount out. The other thing you guys can do is look at the TAP annuity, because the nice thing with TAP annuities is you don't have to do a 4 or 5% rule. They tell you what your guaranteed withdrawal rate is based on your age. So someone in the 60s might get 5.7% guaranteed, which means for every $100,000, I would get $5,700 per month coming to me, regardless of how market conditions are. If you're trying to take that from an investment portfolio, you can't guarantee that. I don't know what the markets are going to do. I can't say for sure that we can take 5% every single year. We might have to cut back if markets are terrible. The nice thing with annuity is there's no cutting back. In fact, it's the opposite. It grows at a guaranteed 3%. So it's $5,700 year one. It could be, $5,800 year two, and so on and so on. It does not stop. If you're looking like you might be a little bit short and want some more guaranteed income coming in, so a little more certainty, TAP annuity, not a bad option at all if you qualify for it. Now, TAP annuity is only for people on Plan 3. If you're on Plan 2, you can still use the state's annuity. It just won't be the TAP annuity. Only difference is there's no guaranteed cost of living adjustment, but you still get the same payout rates. You still get a cost of living adjustment for free. You don't have to pay for it, and they don't reduce your benefits. The only difference is that cost of living adjustment is based on the CPI index. So it could be 0% inflation is low, and it maxes out at 3%. So it's going to be somewhere in that window. So if you're someone like on the Left 2 system, you can buy a Left annuity, and you can still get guaranteed income from the state. You're not going to get the guaranteed 3% cost of living adjustment that people in the TAP annuity has. But regardless, you can still get it. All right, so I hope that gave you guys a little bit more direction to figure out this question of how much is enough. Of course, if you guys want to dive deeper into it, this is something that we do with every day. So if you want to book a consultation with our office, the link to book is always going to be in the description below. On top of our free community, I'll dive deeper into these topics in there. You can always post questions inside there as well. We've got over 100 active members of the community, all Washington State employees that can help you answer these type of questions. So feel free to join. It's still currently free, so don't wait too long before the price goes up. All right, and until next time, always remember that your future depends on what you do today. All right, before I sign off, just a real quick legal disclosure that we're required to say as licensed fiduciary advisors. So remember that this is a podcast. It is designed for educational and entertainment purposes only. I don't know you personally, therefore I cannot give you any personal advice. So please don't take anything that we say on the show as being personal, financial, legal, or tax advice. If you want that kind of stuff, make sure you seek out a professional so they can help you with the strategies and investments that are right for you. Also, please remember that despite the name of our show, we are in no way associated with Washington State or the Department of Finance Systems or any other Washington employer. We're a private-owned firm that specializes in working with Washington State employees, which is why we know so much about this stuff. So remember, we don't work for the state in any way, shape, or form. So please don't confuse us as being an official representative of the state. All right, that's it for the legal stuff. I'll catch you guys all next time.